It is now time to experience the buzz, a podcast that takes an inside look at amazing people doing amazing things. Get ready for some great conversation that will be fascinating, educational, and inspiring. We will also leave room to help small businesses in a big way. Now, here's your host, entrepreneur Steve Buzzard.
Hey everyone, Steve Buzzard here, and we are back. Yes, it's Experience the Buzz. Episode number 134. We have had a little bit of a hiatus, but I'm so excited. Number one, I'm re-retired, right? So I went back to teaching at a local school here in East Sacramento called Sacred Heart. Very excited because my son, Max, is going to be taking over my position as athletic director and PE teacher. I did the same for my oldest son at St. Michael's when I retired 3 years ago, and now it's just like, I'm not a teacher anymore. So 27 years in the book, and one of the big things I was looking forward to getting back to outside of being a wedding DJ and auctioneer, and of course my youth basketball program, was the podcast. I did miss my time here on Experience the Buzz. We have built up something, and with that, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for the support of just listening and just being a part of what I think is very special and very near and dear to my heart. And that is being an entrepreneur in what is a great city. I absolutely love Sacramento. There's no bones about that. I will say that from top to bottom. And so today, as we kick things off, I kind of wanted to do a couple of solo podcasts, and two of them are going to be kind of two separate episodes. This episode are going to be three pivotal moments that happened in my entrepreneur career that really has shaped me and has taught me so much about why I do love being an entrepreneur. Now, they're not easy stories to tell, but I think part of doing this podcast is me being able just to share my heart with you. Right? And maybe it's a way of therapy for myself, because I have learned in the past, 3 or 4 years, that when you have things on your mind, it's very important to talk them out. So this is my form of talking them out and sharing them with you. So we're going to get right into it. There's no need to put anything in between to transition over to the conversation. I was thinking about an episode that I wanted to put together, and it was three pivotal moments that happened for me. One was in 2002. The other was in 2015, and the other one was just recent, 2024. And I wanted to speak to all of those to you. And I wrote down like lessons I learned, but let's talk about the stories. I'll give it to you kind of on the surface level. In 2002, my situation had to do with the Sacramento Kings. So I was trying to be an up-and-coming broadcaster with the Sacramento Kings, had always envisioned being a play-by-play voice of the Sacramento Kings. Obviously did not come to fruition, but something very pivotal in my life had happened in 2002. That's one. Number two, 2015 was a crazy year. So I was a teacher, had been for, at this point, would have been 21 years. Yeah, 21 years of teaching since 1994. And I had an opportunity to move from my current school, St. Michael's, to, believe it or not, Sacred Heart, where I just taught this past year. That was only one aspect. I had looked into network marketing. I know. I'll speak to that as well. And then two other things had to do with my business, whether it be the summer basketball camp and the summer basketball league. So I had 4 big things happening at one time in 2015. And then number 3 was just recent. And this is going to come to be news for some of you out there. But you may not know this, but I actually put my name in for the head of school position at St. Michael's. That's right. Their current head of school, Mary Heiss, is going to be retiring after the 2024-25 year. And they had put out that there would be an opening. And so I applied for it. And the way it turned out, well, obviously I'm not the head of school, but what was behind that I think is very important to share with you and the takeaways that I had from it. Okay. So that is the setup. 2002 Sacramento Kings, 2015, 4 different things happening. And then 2024 St. Michael's. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with 2002 Sacramento Kings. So up until that time, I have shared my journey as a broadcaster. I was able to go from Porterville, where I started, to Sacramento. I worked at a little station called 1240 KSAC. Some of you may remember that. I worked with Bud Ferrillo, the likes of Ted Green, Mountain Mountain Murphy, if you may remember. Now, if you remember that name, that's impressive. And of course, a lot of people don't know this, but Grant Napier actually got his start at 1240 before he moved over to 1140. And speaking of that, I also moved over to 1140 when 1240 decided to go all Spanish. And so I worked for Tim Roy, who was a longtime announcer for the Golden State Warriors. I did it. I kind of, opened up my own doors, became the voice of UC Davis Aggies football, Sacramento Night Soccer. I hosted a few shows, did some shows with Jason Ross. We were one of the first ones to do a Sunday NFL show, Stingers. We did, a whole bunch of things. Okay. So that was my journey. I was also working for the Sacramento Kings. So with the Sacramento Kings, I was doing locker room work. And then in 1999, a strange thing happened. Fred Anderson, who was one of the many voices, not many voices, because there haven't been many voices of the Sacramento Kings, he passed away. And so they were looking for someone to do public address announcing. I didn't think this was my jam, but it ended up being my jam. And so if you remember in 1999, that was the strike shortened season. Jason Williams kind of became a big thing. We went to the playoffs, but we lost to the Utah Jazz. I always remember my most famous call for me was actually the opponent when John Stockton stuck a jumper to knock us out of the playoffs. And I just remember it like this, crowds going crazy. He hits it. It's just like John Stockton. And that was it, right? But that was a lot of fun. And so I came back the next year. So I was 2 years as the PA announcer. And then they decided to do like kind of this public thing where they wanted to have a public tryout. I didn't see that as a win-win for me. I saw that as a lose-lose for me, and it's not what I wanted to do. So here's a little nugget of information for you with the Sacramento Kings. A lot of people said, man, you got the greatest job in the world. Yes, I did at the time. It was so fun. But here's the deal. It paid $50 a night. 50. No, not 500, not 5,000. 50 times 41. You do the math. Then maybe some playoff games. Not going to feed the family, right? So that's not where I wanted to go. I wanted to be on radio. And so from that point, I was able to move into the post-game show in which I was in the Skyline Lounge. And that was a lot of fun. We did that for 2 years. And of course, we were all there for the 2002 season, or the end of the 2002 season, where we had that dramatic loss to the Los Angeles Lakers. I was a part of all that. That was good stuff. And so coming out of that, each year for a person like myself, you get renewed. I wasn't getting Grant Napier money. I wasn't getting Gary Gerald money. That wasn't happening. I was just kind of let's just face it, I was kind of a broadcast peon that was filling a spot, but hopefully doing a good job and making my way up. And so each year you would get your contract renewed. Well, it turns out that I was also a teacher at St. Michael. So I was juggling both and loving it and everything. And so I remember one day I checked in because I hadn't heard anything and was just checking in. I remember I was at first recess, probably shouldn't have been on the phone. Sorry about that, but was calling. And I just remember hearing these words: we've decided to go a different direction. What? Are you kidding me? And so I had to take that in a little bit. And it was hard to process because up until that point, I had not experienced what would be called the bad side of media. And here was my first taste of it. Like, why was this happening? What did I do? And so immediately I began to think, what was it that I did wrong? Well, it turns out there was nothing I did wrong. It was just a decision. And it's very strange because to this day, that phone call that I got, because what had happened is I'd called, left a message, and the guy I was working with was my program director, Scott Zumbiel. And it turns out that somebody called me back, and I still don't know to this day who that person was, but they were the person. We decided to go a different direction. Well, the long and short of it is what happened is that there was a certain person that I don't think liked me, and for this reason. And this is all I know as far as the information. So I'm just giving this to you. Is I worked in the Skyline Lounge. I had the obligation to do a post-game show under the direction of the Sacramento Kings, right? So we had segments that we had to do. Now, because the Kings were so popular, those of you that listen to Sports 1140 KHTK, there was a show after my show, right? And it was by Jason Ross, who was the host, and who, by the way, is still with the Sacramento Kings, and Tom Abetamarco. Remember him? That's right. He was the coach for Sac State for a time, came from the East Coast. You kind of know, right? So it turns out that, Coach would get a little upset over the fact that I would be going so long, because if we had an overtime game, I still had an obligation to do the show. And I think that may have rubbed him the wrong way. That's how I see it, or how it was explained to me. And I know he was good friends within the Maloof brothers, so Gavin and Joe. And there may have been a word or said two. And I think it led to me losing my job. It's that simple. And so this was very disheartening for me because this was the job that I loved. Wasn't sure where I was going to go from here. And when I get to the bullet points of what I learned, you'll understand how it kind of all comes together. But I just want to present the facts to you. I tried to find out what was the problem and actually asked for a meeting with Joe and Gavin Maloof. And I remember each year, the Maloofs would get people on the broadcast team a custom designed suit. So I have a suit that is an Italian suit that at that time was $1,300. To me, that was astronomical money, right? And I wasn't making much, but there was something to be said about that suit. I would wear it, obviously, for broadcasts. I would wear it to the Christmas party. It was a big deal. So I think I was supposed to get another suit. And it turns out that not only did I not get the suit, I couldn't even get the meeting with the Maloof brothers because nobody would talk to me. And so what I found out, this is crazy, I simply asked the question, once I was able to talk to somebody who was kind of in the know but wasn't directly related, I said, who's taking my position? Well, it turns out they said, Coach Tom Abetamarco is taking your position. I go, you're kidding, right? Okay, and I'll tell you for this reason why. Okay, there is a big difference between someone who is either a play-by-play announcer, a guest host, or a show host, or an analyst. Okay, Coach Tom Abetamarco was great at being a kind of guest. Jason Ross in their show was the host. He would present everything. Coach Tom Abetamarco would talk about it, right? That's what he does. If he were doing broadcasts, he would be the one that would analyze what the play-by-play announcer is telling what's going on. So to me, I knew this made no sense because it's like me becoming an analyst. That's not going to happen, okay? I am not fit to be an analyst, nor would I want to be an analyst because my strength is either being a show host or doing play-by-play. Simply put. Well, it turns out that didn't last long. The position ended up going to my good friend. And here is the, I guess the golden egg of it. If I was going to lose my job, he is the only person I would be okay with that I lost my job to. And that's Jason Ross. He is still there to this day. He is still a very good friend of mine. And I tell you, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. But I will admit to you that I'd carried resentment for a while in this regard. So the Kings that year lost to the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, I believe. Yes, or it may have been the series before that. I was the biggest Dallas Mavericks fan that year. So my resentment on the Kings, I was rooting for the other team. The year after that, the Kings beat the Mavericks in the first round, but then faced the Minnesota Timberwolves and Kevin Garnett. And guess who I was a fan of? Yes, the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I believe the Kings may have made the playoffs the year after. But after that, I finally got over it. But for 2 years, I could not stand the Sacramento Kings. That's right. And it was really tough on my kids, especially my boys, Toph and Max, because they knew that I didn't have the job anymore, but they did not understand my resentment, and they love the Sacramento Kings. So anyways, that's the nuts and bolts of the situation, and here are the lessons that I've learned. We've only gotten into the first one, but I think it's worthy. Losing that position for me actually it turned out to be the best thing. Lesson one, and I'm telling you, it's trusting God's guidance for my life. Now, in that moment, I can't say that was true. Okay. This is me looking back and realizing that it was indeed God steering me a different direction. What did it do? Well, it put my sole focus on other things, which would be teaching, which I had the ability to do for 27 years, and put the energy into my youth basketball program, and then start building the rest of my business, which was being a DJ and then eventually an auctioneer. Pretty cool, right? Number two, lesson two, introduction to the cruelty of the world as it relates to my job. And in this case, in broadcasting, right? I had heard all the stories of how people lost jobs, whether it be in TV or radio. I really felt that I had kind of created this group of people that I trusted and I felt good about. And then all of a sudden to have that snatched away from you, it was pretty tough to take. And the thing is, at this point, I was not going to leave Sacramento. So really, it was me being directed in a different way. So I understood that. But the introduction to that cruelty of the world and what it can do and not have any rhyme or reason, I have to admit was pretty tough for me at the time. And then the final lesson was working for someone provides no guaranteed security. And this is the most important nugget of all, because I think this is what truly made me an entrepreneur, right? Like, wow, okay, I thought I had something that I was going to do for all of my life, right? I really, truly felt that. And all of a sudden it was pulled. Now, here's the deal. Could I have gone somewhere else? Yeah, absolutely. But I was building a family and I wasn't ready to uproot my family. It wasn't worth me moving out of Sacramento. So being with my family, raising my family, and being in Sacramento to me was more important. But I tell you, working for a company where they have control over whether they have you as an employee or not, I knew that was not going to be a good thing. Now, look, I ended up being a teacher for 27 years. That's a different part of the story, but that is lesson one. We're going to take our first break and come back with the second segment. 2015, what a year. Well, so good to have everybody back. And just want to take this little break to thank my sponsors. We got two of them. Big thank you to Pit Boss Jerky. They have been with me since day one. They're the only one left, everybody. And we've had great sponsors a lot along the way. Now, if you remember when we last talked about Pit Boss Jerky, how many episodes did I tell you the website is coming? The website is coming. Well, guess what? The website is here, and you can order what I believe to be the best beef jerky online. It's very simple. pitbossjerky.com. There are 13 different flavors, but the great thing about my good friend Joe, things have expanded. They've got beef sticks. He's got barbecue sauce. And yes, there is a beef jerky named after this program. It's got kind of a new name on it, and it used to be Experience the Buzz, but now it's just Buzz Experience Jerky. So you can order right now. I'm looking at it right now. It's pitbossjerky.com. Big thank you to Joe for his continued support. And of course, we'll have him back on the program when we have another conversation, find out what he's been doing since we last talked about him. And I also want to thank MIKIMOS. That's right, barbecue. Best way to get a hold of them is through Instagram. You can go there, go to MIKIMOS_barbecue. Michael Kenobi, yes, he's also my producer, doing a great job. Him and his father-in-law, there it is, father-in-law, have launched this great barbecue business. He's doing weddings, he's doing events, he's feeding rock and roll stars, he's doing it all. So again, big thank you to Pit Boss Jerky and MIKIMOS, proud sponsors of Experience the Buzz. Now, let's get back to the program.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss an episode of Experience the Buzz by clicking the subscribe button now. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. It means everything. Now, back to the show.
All right, let's continue on this conversation. Man, it's so good to be back. So good to be back. And I want to thank you for listening. There's going to be so much coming your way. We're going to have new conversations with new entrepreneurs. Also going to start a segment in which I revisit with people that have been on the program, because for some of the guests, there's been a year, 2.5 years removed since we started the program in January of 2021. So I'm very excited about that. But today's episode is about 3 pivotal moments. Just talked about 2002, Sacramento Kings, lost my position, tough. God sending me a different direction. So 2015, I'm working at St. Michael's, and I'm fully in. Now I'm building my business on the side, Buzzard Ball, DJ, auctioneering, youth basketball. That's happening on the side. But I am a full-fledged teacher. I'm 21 years, right? That's quality. That's qualified as a veteran. And in 2015, what I realized is that in addition to teaching PE, because of what I did with Buzzard Ball, I thought the natural move for me was to become athletic director. So I actually started inquiring, because at the time, our athletic director, St. Michael's, was in place. I didn't think he was moving anywhere. And so I started to look. I felt it was the time. And I was able to land what would be a position to teach PE and be the athletic director at Sacred Heart in East Sacramento. Now, Sacred Heart's a great school. Teresa Sparks, the principal, before Sacred Heart, she was at OLA, and I DJ'd her daughter's wedding. So we were good friends. I felt like this was a good fit. I knew I was going to be sad, but it was kind of just one of those moves where I knew it was the right time. Well, it's weird because things just like kind of got crazy, and it turns out that the AD at St. Michael's ended up deciding to leave, but didn't tell anybody. So the position became open. I ended up staying at St. Michael's as the athletic director and would do that up until 2021, right? 2021. But the hardest part of that was that I had to tell Teresa that I had to back out. There was nothing easy about that. The beauty is that I ended up going back to Sacred Heart this past year. I was hired by Teresa Sparks, who was retiring. So it all worked out, but at the time it was very hard. So that's one piece, okay? The second piece is, oh man, this one gets me fired up. But I had my taste of network marketing. Now, before you cringe, which I don't blame you for cringing, I cringe when I think about it. The company, it was called ACN. I don't even know if it still exists. Now, it's not like your it's not like your product-based network marketing company like Arbonne, which is legit. I buy Arbonne products from a good friend. This was about services. So this was about saving services on your energy bill, your phone bill, cell phone, and I think there were some other things as well. Here's the way I looked at it. I knew it was network marketing. Okay, my mom and dad did Amway and actually did pretty well at Amway. But again, that's products. This is services. This is telling people to change your service to something else and save a significant amount of money. Think about it. There's a lot entailed. But the way I looked at it, I said, okay, I understand the stigma that is behind network marketing, but I'm going to make this work and try to change that. I know you're laughing at me now, and I don't blame you. Very big learning experience, and boy, I'm just glad I got out. But I did learn a lot, okay? And I'll address that. So again, I've got staying at St. Michael's to be athletic director, I had to tell Sacred Heart not coming, and then this happens with network marketing. Two other things happen in that. 4 big things happened in 2015. This is crazy. So my youth basketball league was doing pretty well. Had started in 2014. So I'm about 7 or 8 years in. We had a good blueprint for what I thought was a great youth basketball league. And I had someone approach me to say, Steve, you got a great product. Let's blow this up, right? Have anybody been there as an entrepreneur? And you're like, oh yeah. And so at that age, it was like, yeah, let's do it. Right. So the premise was to take the model of Buzzard Ball and put it in every NBA city. So it's actually very similar to the junior NBA program that's actually in place right now, but it would be the Buzzard Ball model. Okay. And so for me, it was like, wow, oh man, I've made it. This would be great. Okay. I'm going to put that on the back burner for a second. Then we take my youth basketball camp. Same thing. Great blueprint. We've been in place since 1994. We were rolling over 20 years. Could we extend this thing out? Well, we tried to do it. And I'm just going to say in both cases, it ended up, unfortunately, being a failure. Okay. Now, the good news is the league is still intact. The camp is still intact. I learned some big lessons from it. Okay. Some big lessons. First of all, so glad that it didn't work out because I don't think I would have been prepared for that. And so the league stayed put. Okay. Legally I had to take care of some things. I think is the best way to take it. I had never experienced having to sign papers and kind of sign things away and stuff like that. And I didn't sign Buzzard Ball away, but there was just stuff. And then as far as the camp is concerned, I had to, pay back the company and everything, which was, it was sticky, but we got through it. And I think everything was okay. So those 4 things happened to me all in 1 year. What were my lessons? Okay, well, here we go. And I have 5 of them for this one. Lesson 1, what was I thinking, right? Some of you are going, yeah, Steve, what were you thinking? What was I thinking? Well, in the case of the school, that's a little bit different. In the case of network marketing, the league, the camp, yeah, you're probably right. But hindsight is 20/20. Lesson 2, God's protection. Again, I really feel it was God's protection to show me these things, to say, yep, these are the roads you don't want to go down. But sometimes you have to be exposed to it to know. Lesson number 3. This is a big one. Take care of what I already had in place. Okay. And that was more relatable to the basketball component of what I was doing. I didn't need to worry about Buzzard Ball being in different cities. I have something very special right here in Sacramento. Take care of it, build it, make it your baby. And that's exactly what I did. Lesson 4, and this is from the network marketing. This is what I learned. I learned to go deeper with people. I am the first one to admit that I can be a very surface person, and it's based on the many people and families that I know. Like, I can't even remember people's names at times. I can remember kids' names, but people's names, it's very tough. And that's always very hard for me. And so ACN, what it did teach me is, because I was trying to showcase this service-based company, that it really forced me to go deeper with people beyond that kind of that surface level. And I am grateful for that, because I do feel like I can have deeper conversations with people, where if I didn't have ACN, maybe that never would have happened. And then lesson 5, the power of forgiveness. That's right. Forgiveness for me from someone, which I did get from Teresa Sparks, although I know it did hurt her feelings and it was disappointing. Forgiveness in the ACN part, I mean, of the many people that I brought in, I'll say his name, Chris Meyer, a really, really good friend of mine. We would have these meetings up in Rockland, weekly meetings, and they were kind of the rah-rah, right? To get your people in, to try to sign people up. And Chris Meyer, along with another guy named Chris Lee, came with me. And they sat in that meeting. And while I was all fired up, I remember the look on their face. And it was one of, Steve, going back to point 1, what are you thinking, right? But they were respectful. And I later had a conversation with Chris Meyer, and he told me, he said, Steve, you have worked so hard to build up your brand. I just don't think this is a good road for you to go down. And so that was part of me being able to kind of wean my way out. But I thought of the many people that I had conversations with, the families that I had conversations with. That was the one thing I really felt bad and tried to make amends for when I was done, to go back to them and say, hey, I am really, really sorry that I actually put you through that. But I did thank them for trusting me. And that's what it was, is that they did it because they trusted me. So big, big lesson there. And then forgiveness, just on the kind of the basketball side, for the people that I was dealing with, it wasn't pretty, but I had to realize that, they saw opportunity, and being able to kind of, I guess, merge this we were attempting to do it, just didn't work out. Right. And so being able to forgive and kind of move on, I think I was able to do that. And hopefully for those people toward me as well, because, I was probably a little angry and stuff. Okay. So there you have it. 2015 in the books. And so we're just going to finish out with the final one and then call this a day. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. It is a solo podcast. It's just really something I wanted to get off my chest, of 3 pivotal moments that have happened to me and why I love being an entrepreneur. I'm then going to have a follow-up solo podcast, and that one will be things I have learned as an entrepreneur that hopefully can help you, whether you're an entrepreneur that has years of experience or you're just thinking about getting into the entrepreneur world. All right. So the final one, and again, a big thank you to my sponsors, Pit Boss Jerky. Thank you very much since day one. And then, of course, MIKIMOS Barbecue, the newest sponsor. And by the way, if you'd like to be a sponsor on the program, very easy to do. You can contact us. We would love to get you on board. Okay. So Experience the Buzz continues on. Woo, it's getting a little warm in here. Man, I tell you, I have to turn on the fan. Anyways, I'm good. So the final one happened this past year. So 2024, this is how it's set up, is that I made the decision to get back into teaching, to help my son, Max, who will take over as I explained before, PE teacher and athletic director at Sacred Heart. Okay. It was a favor asked by Teresa Sparks. She was retiring, and I decided to do it. I'm glad I did it. It was such an incredible year. And I learned so much, not just getting back into it, like hopping back on that bicycle, but to be able to then mentor my son and get him in position so he can be successful at what he does. And so I'm really, really excited about that. So for me, the goal was I'm going back to retirement. right? Like that was exciting to me to know that I was going to go back to put my energy into being a wedding DJ, although I was doing that already. So I treat everything like it's my full-time job, but to, I guess, give it more energy would be the better thing to say, to build up my calendar as a wedding DJ, as an auctioneer, which I've been able to do, youth basketball program to make sure that's running like the well-oiled machine it was and is. And then, of course, the podcast, getting back into the podcast, not only reestablishing Experience the Buzz, but my reaction videos on First Look. You can check those out on YouTube. And then also starting a new podcast, which, by the way, I have done. That's right. It's called Let's Talk Weddings Podcast. And it deals with the wedding industry. Just recorded my first episode with my good friend and DJ mentor, Joe Calamaris of SJ's Disc Jockey. So that was the goal. And then, of course, more time with my wife, my grandkids. We just found out number 2 is going to be on its way in November. It's going to be a baby boy. So we got Peyton, our beautiful little girl, is going to turn 2 in July, and then a grandson that's going to be here in November. So a lot to look forward to. I feel better. This iced coffee has been sitting here for quite a while, but yeah, just causes me to think, man, God's amazing. He is amazing. And I'm so glad that he's in my life. And this is not a podcast to say, believe in Jesus, although I wish you would. But I will tell you, it's the difference in my life, because had I not had faith, and by the way, God was mentioned, Jesus was mentioned in all 3 of my episodes. If I didn't have him, we would be talking about a much different story. No doubt in my mind. And so for the Sacramento Kings in 2002, for Sacred Heart staying at St. Michael's, for ACN, for wanting to take my league to a national level, my camp to a national level, to applying and being denied being the head of school for St. Michael's. I say thank you. Absolutely thank you. I'm grateful, because the adversity is what makes you stronger. It has done that, and I have so much to look forward to. Even at this nice, ripe age of 55, there is so much more to be done. And to be retired again, to spend time with my wife, with my children, with my family, doing the things that I truly love. And now that's the other piece. I now know that. Like, I'm a wedding DJ. I'm an auctioneer, certified, by the way, from the Western College of Auctioneering School in Bozeman, Montana, class number 248, I believe, to doing this podcast, to my youth basketball program, where I have now had the opportunity to be a part of thousands of families who also believe in what is a truly unique basketball experience. It's my mantra, man. I love being an entrepreneur. And so, yeah, that's why we're going to continue with all these great things that I love. And so I really hope you enjoyed this podcast. I hope, if anything, you were able to pull something away that would be connected to your story. And that's the thing. Tell someone, talk to someone about it. Want to start a podcast? Connect with me. I'll let you know how to start a podcast. Want to be an entrepreneur? I'll let you know how to be an entrepreneur. That's the thing, is we are here to serve others. You know that, right? Jesus's commandment was to love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Jesus, that is. And the other is to love others before yourself. Love others. And so through this podcast, that's what I want to do. I want to serve you. I want to serve others, but also in that same regard, be transparent with you. Put it all on the table. I want you to know my story. There it is. Oh, those are 3 hard things to talk about, but because I've been working on myself, it's a lot easier today than it would have been, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So hope you enjoyed the episode. Part 2 of this one will be a lot shorter, I promise, but it's going to be talking about the things that I have learned as an entrepreneur. I'm very excited to share those with you, because now I have that wisdom to be able to give to you that wants to be an entrepreneur. I'm excited for your journey, excited for this journey. Thank you for listening to the podcast. That's all I got for now. Talk to you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you for joining Steve this week on Experience the Buzz. Steve would love to hear from you. Leave a review or contact Steve directly with any questions at scbuzzard@gmail.com. To see the other adventures of Steve Buzzard, be sure to visit buzzardball.com.